On this episode of New Salts, I repaired the 1985 4.5 horsepower Evinrude that came on the Ventrure 21. I'd previously attempted to start the motor and found that it needed a fuel pump and carburetor rebuild. After these repairs, I tested the motor and found that the lower unit won't go into reverse.
I'm Anna, and this is Ignacio. We, along with our daughter Elena and our pup Bay, are the New Salt selling crew. We are DIYers with a growing appetite for big adventure. Our goal is to DIY and trade our way up to a blue water-worthy boat and set sail on an adventure by sea. We are new to selling and plan to develop our selling skills along the way. Subscribe to stay up to date with our progress and adventures.
Alright, so we got a busy day today. The plan is to start fabricating a stiffener for the transom of the Ventrure 21. So those boats originally had a fairly thin transom, and they do flex when under hard steering. So I plan to fabricate a stiffener for that. We'll go into details of that when we get started. Also need to install the mast support, the aluminum one that we fabricated last week. And also all my outboard parts that finally come in. So we got some flooding here in Houston, and the parts were hung up in the post office for some time. So they finally come in. So we've got our carburetor rebuild kit, water pump rebuild kit, fuel pump cover, and fuel pump diaphragm rebuild kit. That is for the 85 Evinrude. Okay, so this is the 1985 Evinrude 4.5 horsepower two-stroke off of the Ventrure 21 project. So I have parts here to replace. Start tearing this motor down and see what we find. Alright, so we have the diaphragm fuel pump removed. It goes here. I have it here on the bench.
With the fuel pump on the bench, I began disassembling the diaphragm assembly. During disassembly, I noticed that it was previously assembled incorrectly, which may have been the reason the motor wouldn't start. Using the engine schematics came in handy in this situation. Had I just reassembled the new kit like the old one came apart, I may have been chasing my tail trying to figure out why the motor wouldn't start. After completing the fuel pump rebuild, I began working on the carburetor. The carburetor was full of debris, and its float and seat were not sealing off, which was allowing not atomized fuel to run straight into the cylinder. General cleaning, a new float and seat, and a full fleet of new gaskets returned the carburetor to its former glory.
Alright, so we got the fuel pump rebuilt, and I have the inlet pointing up just because I'm going to connect my hose directly, since my feed hose is actually broken. I need to go get another one, but just for testing, I'm going to hook my supply up here from my tank, and then this is the outlet from the pump going to the intake. So now I need to get this gasket off, clean this area, and then install the carburetor that we just went through and rebuilt. So alright, carburetor's back in, fuel pump's on, so now I just need to get a gallon of fuel, mix up some two-stroke oil, and see if she'll fire up. Alright, so we got everything set up. It's going to be our first start attempt. Carburetor's not leaking anymore, so that's a good sign. Before, when the ball would never firm up because the float was stuck in the open position. Alright, so we're going to choke it. Give it about half throttle. Ooh, tried to kick first shot. Alright, so here she is, she's running. Only thing really I have left to do is the clock spring. I think the water pumps are actually strong enough to take her out on a test run, I believe. I'll have another boat out there with me anyway, so if I have any issues, I'll at least have a backup plan. But I think for right now, I'm just not going to mess with the water pump and run it as is. So rev it up a little bit, reverse, neutral, forward, Alright, so reverse is pretty weak on this thing. I didn't really realize it at first, but I actually turned the motor off, put it in reverse, and tried to turn the prop by hand, and it goes free, but it won't do it forward. So there's something going on with the gear case. So first thing I did is drop the plug, and sure enough, it's all water. It's like a water and oil mix, very, very minimal amount of oil. So I drained it all out. I'm going to put new oil in the gear case and see if that helps the reverse dog lock in or not. There it comes. So I'm going to flush it a little bit since there's quite a bit of water. So I'm going to put this upper plug in, and then I'm going to pull the lower one off, and then I'll probably back the upper plug out again to see if any more water comes out of the bottom, since the oil should be on top. Alright, so something going on with the reverse, because if I try to force the reverse drive into gear, the motor bogs out, so something's going on. If y'all are ever working on anything like this, iboats.com, it's the letter I, boats.com, has part schematics for everything for most outboards produced. So it's a good place to go get some free schematics and order parts if you need them. But anyway, I'll show y'all what I'm looking at here. Just film the computer screen. So look here, this is the drive shaft, the output shaft rather. The drive shaft comes down here. So this is the output shaft, and here is the shift mechanism. So when you put it in forward, this goes either forward or reverse, I'm not sure, and then when you put it in reverse, it goes the opposite direction. So these little teeth need to engage on the teeth on the inside of this gear. So for some reason, when we go in reverse, that's not happening. I'm going to take the lower unit off, see if we can tinker with the gearbox and see. So we've already looked online on iboats.com, got the schematic. It's got to be something with that pin or one of the two gears is stripped. So we'll take it apart and see what it is. Pulling this rod back is forward and forward is reverse. But if you look at the shaft here, the shaft turns when the gearbox is in forward. It's neutral. And then in reverse, I can feel it click, but it just does not, the shaft never turns. So I can feel a little bit of resistance, but that's normal, because usually in neutral, normally in neutral the prop will spin even if there's, in neutral, but there's very little resistance. Alright, so we'll go ahead and take the prop off, take this lower housing plate. All that oil we just put in is going to come out, and then we can take this upper gear case cover and see what it looks like. This isn't looking too great because I know you can't feel through YouTube, but you can see that it's just gritty gunk. So pretty sure that means that there's a shredded gear in here somewhere. And I also decided to go ahead and disassemble the water pump. We had to anyway because of the orientation key, and we'll just go ahead and put the new one on when we're done. But it's looking like we're going to need some new gears. The way this gearbox works is that this little lever is attached to the shift rod, and as I turn the shift rod, it moves that cam, and there's three positions. There's position 1, position 2, and position 3. You can see the 3 little detents. Anyway, those 3 detents push on this piston, which I'm going to set this on the workbench so you can see. When you push down, which would be pushing in with that cam, this piece moves. Right? So now you have the 4 dogs on here, 2 on each side, which slot into the face of the gears. So what I think is happening is, since this is the reverse gear, since there's so much water in there, it didn't lubricate this properly and has worn this aluminum surface here. So what happened now is that the gear sits just too far back for it to actually engage, for the dogs to actually engage into the face of the gear. So my options are replace this piece, see if I can weld an aluminum bead on here and then have it machined, or the option I'm leaning towards is get some sort of spacer for this so that it pushes in just a little bit further. Now I don't know how that's gonna, that will affect this gear as well, so I need to be careful on how much I move it, but I don't want to shear the dogs on the forward side. So anyway, we'll do some brainstorming and see if I can find this part and how much it costs. Right now iBoats does not have this component, so we need to see where one might be available.
So the only place I was able to find one of these online was on eBay. It was quite expensive. It didn't really meet the requirements of my budget project, so I kept tinkering with it, trying to figure out what to do next, and found that using a flat washer on the other side of the assembly was the best option.
Alright, so I've confirmed my theory. The issue is that the upper ring gear is too high up, so it is not the dogs, even though they're in the reverse position, the dogs are not contacting it because this plate is worn. So I'll demonstrate the way to correct the issue is to push down on the shaft. See what I'm doing here. So you can see with the shaft pushed down, the dog is contacting it and forcing me around. But with the shaft not pushed up, I can hold, even though I'm spinning the shaft, I can hold it back. And this in and out slop should not be here. This slop is causing the issue. So we need to find a way to push that gear down. Okay, so yesterday we talked about how the tolerance was incorrect, allowing this gear to be too far back and not allowing the shift dogs to contact it. So there's a few options. We could weld on this to extend it out to give it more spacing, or I opted to put a washer in to space this gear back out off of this surface. So that gives us about a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a hair more of thickness. I did assemble it, everything works. So now I just need to completely assemble it, fill it with gear case oil, rebuild the water pump, and put it back in, start the motor up, and make sure that it works under a load. I think this will work just fine. I don't really see any issues with it. Originally it was riding on this aluminum, so this flat metal washer should be fine. I did hone it on a piece of sandpaper just to make sure it is completely flat on both sides, and everything looks fine there. So we'll go ahead and put all this all back together and see where we get. The lower unit is reassembled, ready to go. We still have to put the prop on, but I'm going to wait till I put it on here, just to be a little easier and give me somewhere better to handle the lower unit with the prop in the way. It's sometimes a pain to grip, so do that. Another thing I did while off camera is I finally ran this hose from the fuel connect to the pump, and then I put zip ties on the connection outlet, the pump inlet, the pump outlet, and the carburetor inlet. You can see down there. So everything is ready to go. Just have to put the lower unit back on and see if she'll pump water and see if the reverse works. Lower unit's back on. Roll the motor outside and put it in a bucket, see if she'll fire up, pump water, and run forward and reverse. Something else we're going to do real quick is I'm going to remove the pull starter. The clock spring is slipped again. I ordered a new one. I thought I was going to be able to salvage this one, but I think the spring is just unsprung. So I'm going to take this loose so that it's just out of our way, and when the new one arrives I'll rebuild this, but for the time being I have a manual pull start that wraps around the flywheel, so that's what we'll use. First pull. Forward work. Reverse work. Look at that. All done. And that's good.
Join us next week on Benbrook Lake in Fort Worth, Texas for our first sailing session. We meet up with my uncle, who's an experienced sailor. He shows us the ropes and tests out the performance of the boat. During our sailing session, we find a few things that could really be upgraded if we plan on single-handing the boat in the future.
If you enjoy our videos, please like, subscribe, and share them with your friends.